Okay, so now we're going to have a look at the Mari Cyrillic alphabet. I'm presupposing knowledge of the Russian Cyrillic alphabet at this point. If you don't know the Russian alphabet, please have a look at that video first, because the Mari Cyrillic alphabet uses mechanisms of the Russian Cyrillic alphabet. It adapts the logic of the Russian orthography in its own peculiar ways. We'll have a look at that. And it's easier to understand what is happening if you know what is happening in the background, what this all is based on. Okay, before we have a look at the writing system in particular, let's have a look at the sound inventory, and let's start with the consonants. So if we have an overview of the consonant system here, and this is just showing the consonants used in modern Mari, including consonants used only in loan words like ts, for example, and excluding sounds that are not conventionally produced by modern speakers, like the voice dental fricative, which if you read older reference grammars of Mari, you'll read about it, but you're not going to encounter it in the wild much nowadays anymore. Okay, so if we look for peculiarities here in contrast to Russian, things that we will need new or might need new orthographic mechanisms to deal with, what have we got? Well, we've got a voiced bilabial fricative, a w, a sound that Russian doesn't have, but orthographically, we don't have to do anything here because it is rendered orthographically in the same way that Russian labiodental v is. And younger speakers of Mari might even produce a b sound where historically there was a w in Mari. So this is something to pay attention to when it comes to pronunciation, but in orthography, not much to do here. On the other hand, the velar nasal, like in English finger, this is considered it's an independent phoneme in Mari, and it has its own orthographic realization, as you see here. This is actually a ligature. It's just the Russian letters n and g stuck together. So that's just a new letter you have to learn, but yeah, nothing special going on there. We have to pay some attention to the palatal row, though, where we've got a palatal n, a palatal y, and the y sound. Okay, so these two sounds here, the n and the l, it is important to note that these are palatal sounds, not palatalized sounds like you have in Russian. So the palate is the place of articulation. It's where the tongue is the whole time when you produce the sound, whereas in palatalization, as you have in Russian, the tongue moves to the palate after you produce the sound. But this is, again, something to pay attention to when it comes to pronunciation. Not so much in orthography, because as far as orthography is concerned, this difference is irrelevant. Mari palatal sounds are treated like palatalized sounds in Russian. The marking of palatalness is the same as the marking of palatalization in Russian. It uses the same logic, which is to say that the palatalness of a sound and the sound y is oftentimes, but not always, indicated by the vowel sign used for the following vowel rather than the sign for the consonant. If you know the Russian orthography, you know what I'm talking about. This Russian system was adapted in Mari, but not perfectly. And we're going to look at the peculiarities in a moment. The peculiarities will become clearer once we look at the vowel inventory. So here you see an overview of the 8 vowels that Mari has. In addition to the 5 you know from Russian, a, e, i, o, u, you've also got an indicated by this symbol here. If you remember from Russian, the controversy there is here as regards the relationship between e and this sound. That's a Russian thing. In Mari, there's absolutely no question that this is a phoneme of its own, and it is completely divorced from e. So any interactions between these sounds that you have in your mind from Russian, forget about that. In Mari, you have to treat these two as completely own vowel sounds. Yeah, and then we have got an ö and an ü. And if you look at the orthographic renderings I have here in the after the sounds, you will notice that this duality of vowel symbols that we have from Russian doesn't extend to these new phonemes, and it's also not used for o here. It's not used for either. So for U, we have the U and the U letters. For A, we have the A and the Ya. For E, we also have the two versions, but stick a pin in that. There's some strange stuff going on there, which we're going to have a look at. But for for O, for Ö, and for Ü, we only have one vowel, a symbol. So here we're not using the Russian system. So this is all to say, the way in which we indicate palatiness and the sound y depends on the following vowel sound, and we can distinguish different classes here. Here's another, just a reminder of how the system works in Russian. If you want, pause the video now, have a look at it here, and remind yourself how these different symbols are used in different positions to mark the same sounds, or when it comes to E and these sounds that quite possibly have an allophonic relationship with one another. If we look at the vowels in Mari, we can basically distinguish three groups as regards the orthographic realization. We have got the, let's call it the Russian group of A and U, where the Russian logic was adopted 100% and everything works just like in Russian. If you know the Russian system, you know what to do here. Then we've got the mixed and confused group with the A and the E, where we've got some defects in the orthography. We're going to have a look at that. Defects in the sense that the orthography just doesn't give you the information you need. It's not perfect. Orthographies rarely are, and you just have to learn to deal with not being given all the information you want sometimes. Yeah, and then we have got the last group, the third group, Ö, O, Ö, Ü. This is a group where the Russian system is not used at all, and we indicate the palatiness of a preceding consonant with a soft sign and the sound y with the grapheme for y preceding it. This sometimes happens in Russian, but just sporadically. Well, we'll have a look at it in a moment. Okay, let's look at these groups one by one. The Russian group, A and U. If you know the Russian system, you understand everything what is happening here. And like in Russian, the hard sign, which you have here, only occurs in morpheme boundaries, at morpheme boundaries. If you have in compounds, for example, now in compounds, if you have U or Ya coming after a consonant, you can have basically the hard sign there as a reset of sorts. Yeah, but if you know the Russian system, you know everything what is happening here. The confused group, though, here things are tricky. When it comes to A, we have the two vowel symbols that we use in Russian too. We've got the hard E and the soft Ye, so to say. And they are used exactly as in Russian in the word initial position and after vowels. And it's very important to choose the right symbol here because we have some minimal pairs. For example, we have here er, morning, and yer, lake. And you have to choose the right E to indicate if there is a y before the E sound. Likewise, we have shuem, I throw, and shuyem, I stretch. So here, everything is like in Russian. Also, after the hard sign and also the soft sign, the usage of the soft E indicates that we have the ye pronunciation after a consonant, for example, in per, yeng, man. But the Russian system is not used after consonants. After consonants, we just simply do not use the hard E, the backwards E. And this is a choice that is not based on any kind of logic. This is a choice based on politics. Specifically, back in the day, in the 1920s and 1930s, this letter was used in Mari after consonants, and the Mari orthography was pretty logical at the time. But the usage of A after consonants made the Mari orthography look very un-Russian, because in Russian, this doesn't happen very often, that you have this A, the backwards A, the hard A after consonants. So in 1938, a decree came from Moscow saying, hey guys, your orthography looks too peculiar, non-Russian. We want your orthography to look more Russian. So please stop doing that. Please use the ye, the normal in the Russian orthography, the normal ye after consonants. And ever since then, that's the system that has been employed, which means that we simply do not see the palatalness of preceding consonants in orthography. And we have minimum pairs here that are just not orthographically distinguishable. We have nele, difficult, no palatal sounds here, and we have nele, nele, she, he, it, they, swallowed, third person singular. So this I here is palatal. You couldn't see it. The orthography doesn't tell you that. We in our textbook always have a little accent mark after invisible palatalness, so you know it even if the orthography doesn't tell you that. Theoretically, just from orthography, this could have also been nyele with a ny in the beginning, or nyele. You don't know unless you know it. So, which is to say, you have to know the lexemes to know if something is, if you want to have something palatal or not. Yeah. And likewise with E. So E, we have in the word initial position, we have this E. I'm not showing here mechanisms of how to orthographically realize Y because that doesn't happen in Mari. It's a purely academic question. We have after vowels. This only again happens in at morpheme boundaries in compounds, like if we have kuku ige, a young cuckoo. Here we have then the same symbol is used. After consonants, however, we use the E regardless of the palatalness of the preceding consonant. So we have nine, no palatal sounds here, these. But we have nigunam, the n, a palatal nasal for never. There's no way to know this. Just by the only way to know this is to know it about the specific lexeme. Okay, so this is just a defect that you have to learn to deal with when you are studying Mari, but as long as you're working with our textbook, there's the crutch of us indicating palatalness with this little accent mark after n and l, if they are, after these graphemes, if they are palatal in pronunciation. Yeah. And then the third group, the group where the Russian system is just thrown out completely. Here, everything is completely simple and logical. Before o, and u, we use the letters, the grapheme y. Again, yilme, tongue or language, yorlo, por, yun, method, yula, custom. And palatalness of a preceding consonant is indicated with a soft sign, like in Kresaniak, peasant, kogelo, pie, like a pierogi, a little pie, kürtner, iron. Yeah, and this field is empty because it's just a sound combination. It doesn't occur in Mari. If you remember from Russian that in Russian we have this duality of vowel sounds with o too, where we have the o and the yo. In Mari, this system was not adopted because there are a bunch of peculiarities surrounding the pronunciation of Russian yo. There's alternation between yo and ye, and there's also the rule that yo always has to be stressed. So due to all these peculiarities surrounding it, in Mari the decision was made not to use this letter. This is something, if you're studying other minority languages of Russian, you will find some inconsistencies here, because for example in Udmurt yo was used. There they decided to use the Russian letter, but just to ignore all these peculiarities surrounding its realization in Russian. Okay. It's fairly arbitrary, but well, it's systematic. So this is to say that we have these three groups, and they are not consistent with one another, but they are internally consistent. That is, so if you have like the sounds o, u, the orthographic realization of preceding sounds is always the same with these. And the orthographic realization of palatal sounds preceding an a and an u are always the same. So we have these three separate groups that are internally consistent, but not consistent with one another. Let's see how we're actually doing with the Mari orthography. My suggestion would be here for the exercises. If you want to do these, just pause the video when I show the exercises, and you can try them on your own and see how you do on your own, and then continue with the video and see if your solutions match what we've got. So the first one, this is the simple stuff here. We're just going to look at the consonant inventory of Mari and see if we can orthographically produce all these sounds. We're not yet going for the difficult stuff here. That's coming afterwards. So have a look at the transcription of these words and see if you can correctly render them in Cyrillic. Pasha, work. Tang, romantic partner, so boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever. Tenge, ruble, the currency unit of Russia. Keche, sun or day. Bande, gang. Fin, thin. Silne, beautiful. Where, place. Wagon, wagon. Tuge, yes. Isa, older brother. Jap, time. Chemie, chemistry. Tsunami, tsunami. Yilme, tongue or language. Okay, now let's look at the difficult stuff. How do we orthographically realize these forms? Remembering that we don't always orthographically realize palatedness of sounds, but sometimes we do. So if we have nele, difficult. Nele, swallowed. Orthographically, it's the same. This little accent mark there is a favor we're doing to you in the textbook, but it's not something Mari speakers themselves do. You will not find this in text written by Maris for Maris. Nine, these. Nigunam, never. Okay, so in the next example, we have the verb liash, to be, to become, which has the verbal stem li. So the verbal stem ends in y. And here you will see how the realization of the sound y depends on the vowel that follows it, and the vowel that follows it depends on where in the verbal paradigm we are. So we're going to see how this y seemingly is jumping in and out of existence in orthography. But important to notice here is that this is not an irregular verb. All the peculiarities you are seeing are just the mechanisms of the orthography in play. It is completely systematic and regular. So again, pause the recording after the word if you want and see if you manage to write it yourself and if what you come up with matches what's on the slides. Okay, so to become, liash. Important here is the sound, the combination of letters with the y and the a that you see here. That does not happen. Maybe in compounds, if you have one word ending with y and the second word starting with a, then you'd have it. But within one inflected stem, you would never use the sound, this letter combination of y and a. Okay, if we want to have the participle, the active participle, lishe, being, becoming. Here we now have to have an own letter for the y, because there is no vowel following it that carries this y with it. What if we want to say liesh will be, there's a typo in the slides, I'll fix that. Liesh is realized as something will be, like this. It's important, you don't, the last two variants that you see here, these are not used in modern Mari orthography. The last version you see, that is actually how it was written in the 20s or the 30s. But nowadays, you don't do this. And you don't, the first version that you see here with the y and the ye. My experience tells me that oftentimes students will early on in studying Mari, this is how they will often write it. But in the logic of the Mari orthography, if you're using the vowel sign ye after a vowel, after the e, you do not need to have this y as an own grapheme because the vowel sign ye already carries this with it. But if we have the past tense form lien, what happens then? If we have the following the y, now we do have to orthographically realize it because after y, we need it. A nominal example, vui, head, where we again have y as the stem final sound. So if we just write head, There you go. If you form the genitive vuyen of the head, again with an following it, we still need to orthographically realize the y as a separate letter. But if we're saying my head, vuyem, you only need 4 letters, v, u, ye, m, because ye after a vowel is pronounced as ye. So you don't need the y. And again here, the second version that you see struck through there, that's how the Maoris themselves did it in the 20s and 30s, but not in the modern orthography. And the last one, vuyat, also the head and the head. Again here, only 4 letters, because the choice of the letter ya, that already shows the y sound, and you don't need a separate letter for it. What is extra tricky when one is studying Mari is that the orthographic realization of palatalness and also the orthographic realization of palatalness, like the orthographic realization of y, it can jump in and out as you inflect a word. Because remember, we had these 3 groups of how we orthographically realize palatal sounds depending on the following vowel, but sometimes through inflection, the following vowel can change. And you will have examples where invisible palatalization, palatalness suddenly becomes visible. And you'll have example where visible palatalness suddenly becomes invisible. We're jumping between these 3 categories. For example, if we have the word inye, horse, with a velar, palatal nasal ñ here. It is just realized as inye. You do not see that this is a ñ rather than an n in this. It could be both. You just have to know that inye, the horse, has palatalness. And this is, at least if you're studying Mari with our textbook, you will know this fairly quickly because we're constantly illustrating things with this word. Okay, if we now form the genitive of this, imyun, of the horse. Here we have the completely regular reduction of the vowel from a to a. And instinctively, you might just want to replace the ye with an and let that be that. But remember that before you do have to orthographically realize palatalness. So suddenly the palatalness becomes visible. So in theory, if you were reading a Mari text and you have a new word like this, and you don't know, is that in palatal or not? Just go through the text and look for it in inflected forms. Then you will know, because as soon as you have a genitive, you know if it is palatal or not. If you say my horse, imyem, with this m, possessive suffix, first person singular, before a, we do not orthographically mark palatalness, so here it's invisible again. But if we say also the horse and the horse with the clitic at, which deletes the final a, and we have imyat, now we use the ya sign after the n. So we have here, we have in the 3 groups that we had before, this is group 2, the confused group. This is also group 2 here in the 3rd line. The 2nd line is the 3rd group, the group where we just throw the Russian system overboard. And the 4th line is the Russian group where we do everything exactly like Russian. So we're jumping between these groups. Likewise, or on the flip side, if we have a word kogelo, pie or pastry, little pie, if we orthographically realize the nominative, we'll have for y preceding an o, we need to have a soft sign. But if we say of the pie genitive form, kogelen, nothing changes here, because just as before o, we orthographically realize the palatalness, we do so before an too. But if we say my pie, kogelem, and this o is deleted by the possessive suffix and is replaced by an e, suddenly the palatalness becomes invisible, because before a, we don't indicate palatalness. But if we say and the pie, also the pie, kogelat, we see it again, now by choice of the vowel sign ya. Likewise, if we have sugen, blessing, a word ending in a palatal nasal ñ, which in the word find position, it is orthographically indicated, as it would be in Russian too, if it was palatalized. If we do form a genitive form, sugenyen, have an follow the stem, nothing changes because before we do orthographically realize poutness. But if we say my blessing, sugenyem, with this possessive suffix m, the orthographic realization of the poutness disappears. Oops, there should be a little accent mark here for this to be consistent, to show that we actually, in pronunciation, that we do pronounce it as a pout sound. And if we say sugenyat and the blessing, we have this clitic at, which deletes. Oh no, it doesn't delete anything in this case, sorry, which just goes to the stem. Now suddenly we have the orthographic realization of the poutness with this ya symbol. So this might look a bit daunting at first, but it is, remember that how, as idiosyncratic as this might look, it is completely systematic. Okay, and as a last, for the last thing, let's look at a few pairs just of words. If we have the word ak, price value, we spell this just ak, 2 letters. If we have the word yal, village, resist the temptation to write this with 3 letters. You just need 2. Yal, ya, el, because you do not use y and a, these 2 graphemes, separately after each other. If we have ur, the scroll, we write ur. If we have yumo, God, or a God, depending if you are in a monotheistic or polytheistic context, yumo. You have to choose this one here. But if we have Otto, the grove, OTO, 3 letters, and Yot, foreign. If you are too accustomed to the Russian system, you might want to do this with 2 letters, the Yo, the E with 2 dots over it, and then the T. But Mari doesn't do that. So you have Y, O, T. And this is a nice minimal pair I should have put on the slides, but didn't, is you have the Mari word Yol, which means foot or leg, and Yal, the village. Almost the same, these words, just a vowel sound is different. But Yol has 3 letters, Y, O, L, but Yal only has 2, Ya, El. Okay, this was on the previous slides, but just as a reminder, test yourself if you know how to do this. Er with the hard A, yer with the soft A. And as a last example, if we have the word yeng, person, ye, and now this is a compound / neologism that we've got in Mari, business person. It's a semi-loan translation, a half-loan translation of the Russian word for business person, which is, well, the male form is biznesmen, businessman, and the female counterpart of this is biznesmenka. Mari has adapted this as a neologism, business yang, which is truly gender neutral because yang is just person. And if you want to, so then write business yang. So the first element, the English word business, and then followed by the Mari word for person. As a novice, one might be tempted to write this as B-I-Z-N-A-S-E. But you have to pay attention. You need the hard sign here, because remember that after consonants, we always use the letter ye for a. So if you didn't have the hard sign, you would have no way of knowing that this would not be business eng. You want it to be business yang. And so to indicate that you have this ye pronunciation after consonant at the boundary, at a morpheme boundary in compounds. And I say at the morpheme boundary in compounds because otherwise it just doesn't happen. Mari phonotactics don't allow for this otherwise. You need to have the hard sign. And the same is the case for you and ya. Okay, so that's basically it. I hope that you feel adequately prepared to tackle the Mari language now that you know the Mari writing system. And if you at some point struggle with the peculiarities of the writing system, you can come back to this video and do another revision round. See you in the exercises.